with the greatest pleasure, I would like to introduce, and thank you for agreeing to do this. I would like to introduce Osip Alexeyevich. You all know him. He's a Russian theologian, a unique personality. He's an academician of the Moscow Academy of Natural Sciences. He's quite a unique personality, and we can enumerate his titles for a long time. But in my vision, his great missionary activity he's been doing for many years, and in his works there are topics which are written in plain English, and they are very clear and easy to understand. And the topics are of interest to every person. And I asked him to read the lecture, to reveal his knowledge, to convey this knowledge to you on the topic faith and science. And when I think what is faith, what is the power of spirit, and this thing is substituted very often with logics, with science, and and sometimes we do not understand this, that this correlation should be very tiny, and it is tiny. So Alexey Ilyich, please, if I have said everything, you're welcome. Yeah, you have forgotten something, but anyway. When we speak about faith and science, we usually say that faith is a religion, knowledge is science. True, I remember this for sure, because I attended school in the last century. So, what century are you from? I am from the previous century. I remember in our schools being taught the same things. Science is accurate knowledge. Religion is not science, because there is no knowledge at all. So everything is clear. And once I started learning literature, scanning through scientific books, reading scholars, and with amazement I found out that if we start speaking about knowledge, so the usage of this very word might be very relative. In fact, scholars, one by one, amazingly enough, that scholars, the most famous ones, say that when we speak about knowledge, we relatively call the number of knowledge about the surrounding world, but it doesn't mean that knowledge reflects the objective state of our surrounding world. Einstein sets a very interesting image that our science is very similar to the situation. Imagine the clock. So yeah, we do. We imagine the clock. So we see, we hear it ticking. We clearly see the clock, but imagine that we can never look inside the mechanism. Never, never. So what do we do then? It's interesting. So it's like a boy who tries to look into the mechanism, he breaks the thing. So just imagine this. The scholars are in the same situation. We see the clock, but we never will be able to get to know what the mechanism is inside it. We not only can't look inside it, but we can build up lots of premises upon it. But so we not only can never look inside it, but we will never be able to look inside it. For example, our academician Burke, a very famous man, he said, "What is the truth? What is true knowledge? In science, truthful is everything which brings use. If this premise, for example, helps us work, helps continue continue research, we say that this phenomenon is true. But in fact, he says that all this is fiction because tomorrow's knowledge starts contradicting the previous one, and this process is incessant. There are lots of examples in the history. Do you remember Ptolemaic system? No one doubted that the sun goes around the earth, but we still see it. But you know, but the scientists invented very strange things, in fact, and they came up with strong evidence, but we still write the rise of the sun and the set of the sun. Why not Earth? It's not clear. So we say absolutely anti-scientific things. He says so. So Copernicus, for example, okay, he said. So he thought that this is a pure circle and things like this. So the Copernicus system, now we know for sure that Copernicus was wrong. Why? Because not only the Earth is moving, but also the Sun is moving. That is the point. It is moving, and he didn't know this. So this is the simplest example. If we take, for example, another example, Newton mechanics. So pay attention what the relativity theory did. It's nonsense. The things which this theory substantiates is nonsense, absolute nonsense. So, for example, time, for example, can flow in a different way, at a different speed if the rocket flies at the speed close to the speed of the light. It can fly for a year, and here we would have 100 years. So these things contradict our common sense. But if our academician Landau writes, if we go to the quantum mechanics, he is good at it, really good at it. So the illusions connected to the relativity theory would be very, very small as compared to the illusions coming from the quantum mechanics. So every day we witness the change of knowledge. So every upcoming knowledge shatters the previous. The previous what? The previous knowledge? No, it's not knowledge. We are now sure that it turned out to be not knowledge, but the mistake, and this is an incessant process. So, in the history of all the scientific progress, starting from Copernicus in the 16th, 15th centuries, the closer it is to our days, the more things, the more strange changes we can behold. So, many things are inconceivable. So, for example, the uncertainty principle by Niels Bohr. What does he speak about? So, it turns out that an electron can be in certain conditions as a particle. In another condition, it may be a wave. So tell me, what is in common between a wave and a particle? He named this principle as a principle of uncertainty because uh, it, it transpires that in our experiments we start investigating the realia in micro world. These things are incompatible with the things happening in macro world. Well, that I mean that there is a micro world, a mega world, a macro world. Um, so and the things happening in these worlds are sometimes hard to understand. So, um, how do you understand the phenomenon? For example, described by Oppenheimer, um, the founder of the first atomic bomb, dropped back then in Japan. He was writing that he had consulted with 40 leading physicists. But I am sure when he was working on his theory, he had to consult with them, and they all unanimously claimed that we have no idea what a substance is. We don't know the laws which rule it. What we know is just a surface, a garment, but we have no idea what is in fact going on inside the substance. It's very interesting. Um, so, as an illustration, um, as an illustration, if if you ask uh, whether electron changes its position, we can answer no. So if we ask whether it changes it, no. If you ask whether it remains at the same place, no. Does it move? No. What is yes? What is a positive answer? Uh, as soon as we touch the micro world, the substance, a bit, we suddenly get into the world of absurdities. As compared to our normal logics, if we compare these absurdities to our mundane life, they are total absurdities. Is it knowledge? One of the foremost physicists, Feynman, back then in 90 something, um, he in his lectures, which were translated in our country and they were published and I used to read them, he tells his students, if you think that science is true, you are mistaken. It's not true. Why isn't it false? Because science must look forward. What does it have to do? It must create hypotheses. It must create. They may be false or true. We always live in the world of hypotheses, but are they true things? This is a recurrent process. He repeats to the students, if you think that science is true, you are mistaken. Curiously enough, the same idea we can encounter, about the false nature of the knowledge we have in the process of our communication with the outer world. So we encounter these thoughts in the works by the people who could not know anything about the real science. From people who belonged to the great science. Philosophy. Ancient Greeks, for example. Um, uh, you know, there was so ancient Greece is very interesting with the fact that our philosophical European thought stems from the ancient Greek thought. That is why it is interesting. And on the one hand, they were doing things which are absolutely clear, but there were people who named themselves wise men, sophists. In ancient Greek, Sophia means wisdom. Do you know what they were doing? So they were refuting absolutely evident things, and they were doing this so wisely. Um, they were aporias, means difficulties appearing in people's conscience. There was an interesting um, philosopher Zenon, the third century. But before him, there was another more interesting philosopher, Socrates. Am I torturing you now? So we are talking about anything here. So we gathered just to talk about uh, ancient Greeks. So we could speak about Chinese fashion of the 10th century, but unfortunately, I don't understand anything about it. So just imagine what these philosophers were trying to prove. So they said there is a movement, a speed, or one person can overtake another one, a horse or a cheetah, for example. They say that it is the fastest animal. It may run up to 100 kilometers per hour. um, right, so he can even compete with a car. And suddenly they say that movement is nonsense. If anyone ever read Odyssey, I rarely see people read such books. I remember it was published in a very bad uh, way. There is a small, uh, there were small letters which were very hard to read, but that was very interesting to do. In Odyssey by Homer, one of the main characters is Achilles. Homer describes him as fast Achilles. He was moving like a lightning, and one of the skeptics said, "Do you know a turtle? Do you know the speed of a turtle?" "Yes, I do." Achilles will not take over a turtle. Everyone was laughing, so they thought he had gone mad. Don't believe it. Just let's think about this. There is a turtle and Achilles. So here everything starts. A turtle crawls, and Achilles is trying to take it over. So you see, Achilles did half the distance. At the same time, the turtle crawled some distance. Achilles did another half of the distance, and turtle crawled something else. And on, and the process repeats. So the turtle crawls, and Achilles does only half the distance. Such absurd things. There were lots of them. And all the people were amazed at such inferences, but their thoughts were interesting. These sophists were interesting in the history of the ancient Greek thought. Their ideas, being at the same time wise and resolute, were undermining the authority of what people always called the truth. What is the truth? Tell me. Remember those who read the Gospel when Jesus was judging Pilate? Do you remember uh, mm, this episode? And Jesus Christ uh, told Pilate about the truth. Well, Pilate, having certain education, with resentment said, "What is the truth?" With the gross resentment, and turned his back at Jesus Christ. It, it is the first century. The first century that talks about the truth talks about nothing. The ancient Greek philosophy undermined the whole authority of the very notion of the truth. I've just uh, I've just talked about it. In the 20th century, academician Burke said, "The truth is a useful fiction, and the delusion is a false fiction and nothing more." Fiction. It means that it doesn't happen in reality, it's just happening currently. Now, it gives us an effect, but nothing more. So we say true. What is it? The truth. And even now, if we turn to the state of philosophy nowadays, it's amazing that philosophy, which aimed at the search of the truth, does not exist any longer. Philosophy does not look for the truth. It turned into psychology, collective psychology, sociology. It's not looking for the truth. This objective does not exist anymore. It has a pragmatic aspect. It's all down to earth. If we speak about the truth, we imagine something absolute. So which worldview is true? And what is a true worldview? And which conditions make it possible to have the true worldview? Is it a matter of knowledge or belief? What is actually true in our life? So we can only guess which theory is true. We have no idea because today's theory contradicts the yesterday's one, and tomorrow's theory contradicts the current one. Where is the absolute truth? And what is the absolute truth? Is it knowledge? No. Or maybe yes, because the knowledge about something very clear. No, the truth is not in science. It's 100%. Our academician Kapnin, he organized the whole team which was investigating the basis of mathematics and the analysis of possible evidence, mathematical evidence of the truth. And he writes, "We came to the conclusion that even in mathematics, in the accurate science, there are certain points which cannot either be proved or contradicted. They just exist." Do you know this? So that we can not even prove the existence of this world. So Philip Frank writes about this very clearly. He was an interesting philosopher, scientist. He passed away in the 60th of the previous century. He says that, yeah, clear, I am sure that I'm not sleeping now and everything I see now really exists, but I cannot prove it. It is impossible to prove it. The science states that the notion of the truth in science is a relative notion. It is a useful fiction. Well, Burke said it very clearly that he was not a philosopher, but philosophers usually go crazy. I'm sorry for such a word. And again we get back to the same thing. How can it be that we can actually not prove the existence of today's current world? Berkeley, the philosopher of the 16th century, a founder of solipsism, the direction in the philosophy which states that we do not perceive an objective world, but we perceive our emotions, our impressions, the impressions of influences upon us. So we clearly remember from the physics that that actually colors do not exist. What are they? So colors are just influence upon our eyes or certain nerve, and we perceive this or that color as red, as blue, as green, but actually someone who's looking from a side says, so no, it's not. So what kind of music can it be? No music at all. Just we perceive this as vibrations. So are we stupid people? No, we are not. And they say that this is the music. For physics says there is no music, there is no taste, there is no color, nothing. It's just a reaction upon our tongue. So all the reactions are just subjective impressions, and we say that subjective things are quite objective ones. So physics is a horrible world. There is no beauty. There is no music. There are no colors. It's a horrible world. What really exists? I have no idea. Who can we believe? Can we believe our subjective impressions? Physics? So there was the whole direction, the whole branch in philosophy, so which is very easy to check, because this branch is hard to be contradicted, because we have no idea what really exists. Either our subjective impressions or perceptions, or objective or an objective world. We have no idea, even in this aspect. So what kind of knowledge is it? So long live knowledge. So we are trying to overhaul things. We're trying to make out in everything. One of the academicians of the National Academy said that our scientific perception in any time, future, present, or past, would always be a tiny island in the ocean of non-perceived. He was geniusly clear. So it's a tiny island of of something which is enigma in enigmatic world. So he was not the only one to say this, but he voiced out the common idea. So we can come to certain conclusions when people say, like, science versus religion. So interestingly enough, so they say science proved that there is no God. So listen to this. If we, based upon this tiny island, prove this, so I come up to the ocean, take a bowl, take water from it, and and say, so we were told that whales swim in these waters. What kind of whales? So there are even no fish. So science is a tiny island in an eternal ocean of enigma. So based upon science, that the world which we study is eternal in every aspect. Can can really science say that there is no God? What can it say? It can say nothing. I have no idea. It can say that we don't know until my bowl has a whale swimming in it. So, but in fact, if we turn to the history of science, we may see that there were a plethora of scientists which started believing in God. By the way, from the very beginning of the existence of science, from starting from the medieval monks, they were doing rhetorics. They were the creators of the medieval science. So even even if we remember Giordano Bruno, who was burned out, and people have no idea about this. So do you think that there was the argument between religion and science? No, 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 because the science was represented by the monks, by religious people. So there was the argument about two different points of view. Well, the sun around the earth, or the earth around the sun. So two directions. There were two directions how to win, how to get victory. And very bad thing was happening. So one point of view started to be supported by the cardinals and by the Pope. So, and then they declared those who were against this point of view were to be burnt out. It was very easy back then to be executed. So the knowledge, the science, cannot really, can never say that there is no God. It can only say what? So suddenly it can encounter the facts, the evidence, which cannot be placed within any existing theories, within any thoughts. So the facts which transpass the boundaries of ordinary experiment, then we start thinking whether there is anything else, anything different. Is there anything spiritual? Is there a spiritual world? Is there anyone who religion names God? According to the contemporary scientific data, Homo sapiens, I mean we are, appeared about 35,000 years ago. So if we speak about all these millions, it's all nonsense. So they start speaking like it's a probable predecessor of a human being. So it's nonsense. I mean, these Neanderthals, Australopithecus, and other stuff. Uh, in fact, a human being, I mean Homo sapiens, according to the scientific data, appeared about 35, 40,000 years ago. What is more amazing is that it turns out, um, according to excavations, uh, I mean those perpetrated by the Soviet scientists, I would like to underline that they were not interested in supporting the religion, and they were ousted from the party and the Academy of Science. So it turns out that these first people used to have religious views about which we can judge by theological data. They were the sun cult. So and we can judge um, about this by the findings, excavations. It's an interesting, curious fact. So it speaks about religion being omnipresent. Um, so there was no pre-religious state, and science doesn't know anything about this fact. Um, there is Professor Osipov who um, described these facts in his book. So once I read these facts in his book. So it's a very important fact that religion is eternal. So it turns out that Homo sapiens appeared 35,000 years ago, and who were these Australopithecus and other stuff? We have no idea. So they find nails, teeth, and other stuff. Who were they? Uh, but a human being had religion from the very beginning. So do you know what I'm driving at? So the point is that religion is pertinent to a human being. So people used to believe in God. So who is God? If we speak about him, who is he? Well, there are different understandings about this, but if we try to express the most substantial ones, so first of all, it's a source of all the being. He is, if you want, he's a creature. He gave the beginning to everything that exists. What kind of beginning did he give? So he gave the beginning which Pythagoras spoke about. Pythagoras, looking at the sky, pronounced a very interesting word. He called it the space. So men do not understand anything, but women smiled at the pleasure. So the space, the beauty. So it is the most important thing for women. Do you hear what he said? So we here used the word space. No, he didn't say space. He said space, cosmos, which means the beauty. He said it in amazement. And the whole history of the human being is under this amazement at the beauty, at the order of everything which exists, to the wisdom which saturates this whole world, and the source of which is God. Who is he? is if he is the world, if he is the source of being, as soon as we say God, we mean that this is the point, the starting point of our understanding of everything. He is the truth. He is the truth. What is the truth? It's a Russian word which means being, which means reality. It's not a fiction, it's not hypothesis, it's not magic. It is what really exists, and it undoubtedly exists. That is what the truth. So if there is God, it means that there is the truth. Where is the truth? And and those who those who really are interested in this issue have to think about it, whether there is God or there is no God. They have to think about what is called worldview. And in fact, there are only two ones. The first one says that there is God. So consequently, so all this being is wise, is absolutely wise. So look around you, that we do not find anything more beautiful and higher. So only God has the wisdom which no other creature possesses. He is able to understand, to perceive, to fully comprehend this truth. The personality cannot be destroyed. If there is God, there is eternity for the human being himself. The Christianity says this. This is the base. This is the underpinning of our correct evaluations of the sense of our life. The world view is, if you wish, the understanding of our being, which answers the question, what is the sense of human life? The religion understanding is that God is the source of life, and if we communicate with God, we get eternal life. It is worth speaking about it. So the personality is indestructible, and what does it mean? It means that it turns out that the laws of a moral life, which every human being feels, the life according to conscience, and conscience is pertinent to every human being. It's not a toy, it's not a chance thing. If you wish, it's a litmus paper which enables us to orient in this life. Or whether it is God, whether He is the source of these laws. He is, and consequently, our life does not end with the change of garments, with the change of dressing. Here, a person only gets rid of the bodily garment. Just look at the caterpillar. So we suddenly see that it created a tomb itself. In a while, we see that out of this tomb there flies out an amazing butterfly. Religion speaks about this. So it is no use thinking that we die and everything destroys. No. If we so if you wish, we only we only live on because there is eternity for us. If there is eternity, I can understand what we do because I can understand and see the sense of my life. I see the sense of my life. So here it is. It will. It will be in the future. But if you think about a contrary thing, there is no eternity, nothing. There is nothing in the future. What is so? This is the wonderful sense of life. So all my love, all my aspirations, all my deeds are nothing. It transpires. So if I die, everything ends. And what is the sense of my life? And everyone will die. So Moiseyev writes now. He says that the human being as a biological kind will stop its existence, and it will happen probably in the middle of the 21st century. So he comes to this conclusion because he sees what we do about this world. So what we get from this abominable scientific progress by which we destroy ourselves. So we destroy everything we live in. But actually we are amazed at the progress we have achieved, and probably in the middle of the 21st century probably the end will come. So once I participated in the session of the Scientific Academy, and they were speaking about the things which shocked me, and my hair rose up on the places where I have no hair. So everything is being destroyed, everything is dying. So on the global scale, the earth shrinks and it will turn into a small ball. I don't mean physically, but so if anything happens in this part of the world, so the consequences are visible on another part of the world, the USA. I mean, the USA. I won't speak anything bad about this country. Kyoto Agreement says that we have to stop contaminating our earth. But when we got the answer from the USA, I was shocked because we cannot sign this agreement because it might damage our economy. So wonderful. It's amazing. The logic is so strong. So can you hear this? What insanity. So what do I want to say? Belief in God gives me the sense of my life. So I understand why I live. I understand why I need justice. I need love. I need sympathy, respect, assistance. I understand why I need all these things. I do understand. My personality is indestructible, so it has a great sense for me. It's my capital for eternity. But if there is no God, What I what is the difference? Everything. Everything will be destroyed together with my life. So the ship goes down. What is important to do? So you will say that it's important to save ourselves. Like, if you think this, you are strange people. So we start robbing the rooms to get as much as possible. We need to rob. Can you hear? But so if I live only once, I am this ship. I was born, and my ship from the very beginning of my existence starts going under the water. So it's an interesting ship because you have no idea when it when it fully goes down under the water. We have no idea when exactly my ship will go under the water, but I know for sure that it is sinking. But while I am alive, until it goes fully down under the water. So let's kill, rob, humbug, lie, so perpetrate crimes for the sake of what? So for the sake of actually nothing. So so can you hear this? What kind of worldview is it? There is no God, there is no eternity, I live only once. What is it? So a man, can you think a little? So the whole universe speaks about the existence of God. So the class society, by the way, appeared about 5,000 years ago, and the human being, the humanity, appeared 35,000 years ago, and religion appeared 30,000 years ago. Who 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 actually found it out? So if you read anti-religious literature, so I have no idea who wrote this. They are evil people who try to din into our heads absolutely bad things. Atheism is anti-scientific. Why is it? It's very easy. Because science says that the world is eternal. So I cannot say that there is no God, but atheism says that there is no God. It means that atheism is anti-scientific. Um, Once I was in Sarov, it's a close town. So people asked me to read the lecture about. Um, so I said that the topic of the lecture will be atheism and science. Um, so, uh, so I say that no, we'll speak about the science and atheism. By the way, people there is very friendly. I like meeting such people. I like when I see intelligence in people's eyes, when people understand me. Um, so the perception of my lecture was very good. So science and atheism. So it turns out that atheism is anti-scientific in its nature, judging by only this reference that our perception is miserable. Well, to say that there is no God. So what are we driving at? So it turns out that it is impossible to see spirit. I remember in Lavra, in the Soviet times, So different people um, visited Lavra, and the group of people once said, "Who saw God?" So it's a strong argument, isn't it? Yes, it is. And he got the answer. Did you see your brain? Did you see your mind? Everyone was shocked. Oh, nonsense, really nonsense it is. Have you seen God? What do we really see? So God is spirit, not a bodily creature. So it's another substance, another reality. Have you seen your mind? And he instantly hid away under the laughter of the people. So belief in this case is the initial instrument, initial moment for a human being to, out of his own experience, probably, to make sure that there is God, that God is the truth. So well, first of all, I made sure that science even doesn't analyze, doesn't study the sense of human life. So I am the co-founder of the conference, Science for the Religion and Philosophy. This conference takes place in Dubno every year, and here, and when we all meet, we have to make sure that all the sciences don't even pose such a matter, whether there is God or there is no God. There is no matter, there is no question about the sense of human life. So science doesn't do these matters. And what about a human being? Once I talked to the director of the Scientific Institute of Atheism. I asked a question. Well, help me answer my students. What is important? What is it important to do to make sure that there is no God? So I want to make sure. So help me to make sure that there is no God. So here, what can we do? I'm an intelligent man, and how can I prove to to an intelligent person that there is no God? What's the worldview which cannot answer the main question? So the worldview, there is no God. Okay, good. What should I do to see it? So should I do science? I'm a scientist, and science does not answer the main question. So, and we could not speak about this back then. So once I remember we were hosting the delegation, the member which said, like, you cannot answer the question, you do not say anything. Do you know what I told him? I said, do you know what? Do you see me? Yeah, we do. So bring me here the champion, the heavyweight champion of the world, and you will see how I will kick him. But there is one condition that you need to. So you have to tie him so that he could not move. So we could not say even a single word. So we cannot answer your question. So bring me your truth, and I will answer. What is a religion? Religion states that there is God. So this is the primary statement, that God is not something abstract, is not something we just have to believe in and that's it. No, no. It turns out that there is a possibility to understand what God is. Religion speaks about this. So it so we can turn to the fact which did not exist in the human being. So the whole universe was religious. Even now, in the contemporary world, when atheism is being advertised around the globe, so according to the statistics, about 70% of people keep on believing in God. Why does it happen? So because they are not intelligent. Yeah, sure. Such people as Max Planck, Gesenberg, Vladimir Pavlov, Philip Fran, Archbishop Luca, Paul of Florence. So they are not intelligent, sure, for sure. There was a case a seaman was walking down the street on the opposite side. There was academician Pavlov, uh, and academician Pavlov crossed himself, and the seaman said, "Oh, darkness, darkness," and the seaman knows that there is no God. Oh, darkness, darkness. So if it were really true, there would no be any scientist who would believe in God. So many scientists really, really said that science brought them to believing in God. Our academician Bektereva, who was the director of the Brain Institute, she used to be an atheist, and studying the brain, she used to say the existence of this marvelous instrument. I mean, the human brain is impossible to explain, but only by the existence of the higher intelligence. So, but anything, the French academician used to say that the that only the study of the human hand brought me to believing in God. There were many, many scientists who were speaking about the higher intelligence which could create this wisdom, this beauty, and so now we understand why a person needs to start believing in God, as well as the pupil does not start believing in what the teacher says, he will never know anything. So it is important to believe in elementary things. It is important to experiment on ourselves, experiment of believing in God. Only then a human being can understand and gets the knowledge from God, because the knowledge could be could shock a human being. Balzac, Honoré de Balzac, everyone knows him, once said, "Of all the seedings entrusted to the soil, the martyr's blood gave the richest harvest. So so the history of the universe never had such a number of martyrs died for the sake of Jesus Christ. So were they really insane people? No, they were not. So this is a marvelous fact. Millions of them. So go to the catacombs in Rome. Only in Rome. In other places. But take Russia, for example. There were so many of them during the revolution. There were so many people killed during the revolution. Why? Only because they believed in God. But very many people could escape murder just just when just when they said that they did not believe in God. They would be liberated. But no, no. So they were not frantic. They were ordinary people. So only one, only this fact, I mean millions of martyrs for the sake of Jesus Christ speaks volumes, because everyone could join in God. So the God kingdom is inside you. Really, when people were leading this way of life, they were they were joining in, they were communicating with God, they got the real knowledge. They did not get theories and fictions, they got real knowledge. I'm sorry for torturing you for so long. So there was the introduction. The second part will last to the morning, so you're free now. So I won't keep you long. So, till the next evening. Yeah, that's what we can say a little bit uh, about this topic, belief and knowledge. So actually, we don't know anything in this world. We made sure that we really don't know what will happen in a minute. Who knows? In an hour? Who knows? In a year? We don't know anything. Anything. Yeah. A human being is a proud word. Who said this? Gorky.